Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Here's the latest on Isaias, which is a hurricane. It kind of spiked up late last night. If you're following along, I was talking about it at 11, and then the hurricane hunters found it to be a hurricane. This morning, it's not doing as good. We thought maybe it was going to take off last night, but if we look carefully here at the visible satellite image, shows a lot. We can actually see the low-level circulation tucked right under there because you see these low-level clouds coming in, but the bulk of the thunderstorms, or what we call convection, is off to the north and east, away from the center. But it's starting to get that look of a tropical system for once. It's been very messy the last couple of days, but notice the lack of clouds and outflow off to the north and west. I'll widen this out a little bit. There is some dry air and wind shear on the northwest side, which is kind of inhibiting its progress right now, and I can show you this a little bit better with some of the products here. So the first thing, this is the 5 a.m. advisory. The 11 just came in. I don't know why it's not updating yet, but a couple things you notice. The shear is the red and yellow is not ideal, so it's in an area of some shear. There's a little bit more favorable area in the central and northern Bahamas where it's going to probably maintain itself or get stronger, and then the shear picks back up after it gets after Florida. There's also some dry air in there. That's the area in orange and yellow. So it's combating two things right now. It's got some dry air and wind shear, which isn't conducive for a storm to crank up. One thing it does have going for it, tons of very warm water. That is not going to be an issue with this system in the near term. So let's start with the forecast. Just came in. Let me shrink this up so you guys can see it a little better. I'll put this right in the middle of the screen. This is the 11 a.m. advisory coming in here right at the top of the hour. You can see the initial intensities dropped to 75. So it was probably going to become a category 2, but now it looks like it might maintain strong category 1. Doesn't matter. Impacts don't change that much. But you could see the timing here right off the east coast of Florida. Now, what's crucial here is the weaker the system is, the closer it's likely going to get to Florida. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. The stronger it is, the further offshore it's going to stay. So that's going to change the overall forecast depending on its intensity over time. Let me show you as it gets up close to the Carolinas. Sunday night into Monday morning, approaching Georgia, South Carolina. I don't know why this is so big. I have to shrink it up for you so you can see. There we go. So this is the 11 a.m. advisory. You could see it coming up to South Carolina, North Carolina border, somewhere in here. Now remember, the cone, it technically could be anywhere in here. I don't like the line, and I probably should take out the icon, but it gives you a timing issue. So you're talking, I think the worst weather for the Carolinas is probably going to be late Monday into early Tuesday, with it crossing somewhere in here. And that puts the Outer Banks in really nasty weather. But also notice the intensity is strong tropical storm, weak hurricane, and it's moving. It's flying to the northeast because it's going to get caught up in that trough. And then speaking of the northeast, there it is, heading up to the northeast for everybody viewing in New England. From the mid-Atlantic north, becomes kind of an extra tropical type system as it gets absorbed into this trough, still causing a lot of issues. Rain, wind, and definitely storm surge will be a big problem. So what are areas that I'm concerned about right now? This is my level of concern for the Carolinas. Definitely medium threat for most of the coastal sections. But as you get close to the Grand Strand, northeast into the Outer Banks, a little bit higher concern because of direct impacts of storm surge. I think storm surge is going to be our biggest issue with this. There is heavy rain and some wind, but those might be short-lived. The rain doesn't look crazy high, and the winds, while there could be gusts to 70, 75, a lot of that looks like it's going to be well off to the east of the system. It just doesn't look like it's going to be that close to us. So let me show you what's going on. I talked about the weaker system. So weak systems, like you see the low-level circulation here, tend to be very shallow, we call it, which means the storm isn't vertically stacked. So when you have a shallow system, which means the low-level center's off away from the upper level, it's kind of tilted. The low-level trade winds, which are blowing from east to west, that's what moves everything across the Atlantic this time of year, could push the low-level center further west, and that would pull the whole system with it. If it's vertically stacked, which means it's very well organized, it gets steered more by the mid-level flow, low-level flow, and upper-level flow combined. That tends to possibly keep it further offshore. So a stronger storm that's vertically stacked would stay further out here. The weaker system has a chance to make a closer approach to Florida. Not only does that mean it approaches Florida, likely means it interacts with Florida, which then weakens it further. So areas north of Florida, not great news for Florida, by the way, But for areas north, that means an overall probably weaker storm system. So let me show you the guidance. I'll put the spaghetti plots on here so you can see them. You notice the system, all the winds are so far to the northeast of the center. I mean, it's lopsided. You know, down here in Cuba, they barely have any winds, but way up here in the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos are getting strong winds. That's why this track getting close to the Florida coast, you're probably getting nervous, and I would be too, but the worst weather is going to be out in here. And notice the guidance is clustered nicely right with our forecast track. And then we come up to the Carolinas, and actually I'm going to take that center line off because I really do not like having that on there. So let me take that off real quickly. I'm going to go up to the forecast track. We'll look at the forecast. We'll take the line off there so it's not too confusing. So you can see the center of circulation comes somewhere, you know, Grand Strand, Cape Fear region up into eastern North Carolina. And again, if it's further offshore, it's further away, but it's stronger. If it's closer to shore, it's weaker, but we're getting more impact. So, you know, this is like splitting hairs. Like, what's the worst? This, to me, I want a weaker system overall, but if we're going to have a stronger system, please move it out here so that the worst weather stays way east of the circulation. And that's really, you know, what we want to see with this system. A couple of things to point out here as far as the future. I love showing this graphic because it shows deep layer shear not really abating much. So the shear stays high, sea surface temperatures stay high, and then down here at the bottom, you could see relative humidity less than 60%, in some cases down around 50%. So two things working against Isaias is the dry air and wind shear. What's working for it is the warm water temperature. So you see the intensity forecast up here. Notice that, you know, they're all kind of leveling off at weak tropicals or weak hurricane, strong tropical storm, that 70, 80, 85 mile per hour, even a couple up to 90, but they're all pretty consistent. And the reason they're doing that in the guidance is because of what you're seeing right there. That's the reason you're seeing so much. And the intensity forecast, again, this is probably easier to see, shows pretty much flat, maybe a little uptick, then flat, a couple spike up here, but the majority start declining the intensity over time because of wind shear, dry air, and interaction with land. Now, let me show you something else. The hurricane hunters are out there. They found the center moving northwest on the edge of the circulation, and notice the pressure has stayed pretty stable. 995, 96, 95. So it's not really getting stronger, weaker. It's just kind of maintaining itself right now. Now, as far as that water temperature is concerned, so another reason if it stays further offshore is a problem. There's really warm water just offshore in the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is right there. That's almost 90-degree water. So really, really warm water. So the closer to the coast, not only is it weaker interacting with land, wind shear, it's away from the warmer water. So there's a lot of reasons why being closer to the coast, I mean, isn't great weather, might actually be better for a weaker storm. But as I mentioned, if it's going to be stronger, let's get it way offshore, away from everybody. But overall, not a lot has changed since yesterday. The only thing is that it's gotten stronger in the short term, which is something that we're going to have to watch. So what's steering this thing? Again, the ridge of high pressure. Let me turn off the recon data because it's, I like looking at the recon data, but it's a little crazy. So there's the track. There's our big ridge of high pressure over the middle of the Atlantic, which has been driving it for days, pushing it to the east. And then here comes our really weird summer trough, which we don't normally see. So it wants to go north and east. That's what it wants to do. It eventually wants to go north and east in that southwesterly flow. And the further north and east it gets, that flow gets stronger and starts kicking it out. So right now it's all about this quick churn. So this trough is really what's driving it. And I'm going to put this, I actually have this as a guidance. So we'll put this out into the future here. Hold on. We'll show you how this trough digs down over time. I'm going to go out till tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, look how deep this trough is. So this thing is not going farther west. And what I mean by west, it's, you know, it's not going west of there. So it's just a matter if it gets close to the coast here or turns here or turns here. These are really the options. That going this way is not an option with this monster thing sitting here. And as that continues to dig south and push to the east, it starts pushing the system away from the coast. So even as it gets close to Florida, it's going to want to get kicked to the north and east. But remember, our geography in the Carolinas is always problematic. And I talked about this yesterday. That sticks out like that, right? Well, let me show you something that'll show you recurrence of tropical systems. So here, let me show you first the recurrence of hurricanes. I'll move my head up here so you can see it. Of all the U.S. coastline, the Outer Banks has the highest return frequency for hurricanes. Basically meaning a hurricane happens there once every 5 years on average. That's over the entire history. Sometimes more than that, sometimes less than that. But on average, once every 5 years. You look, the second closest would probably be down here near Miami, southeast Florida, but that lines up with Cape Fear region and the Crystal Coast, and then parts of southern Louisiana, because it sticks out. And that's the thing we all have in common. Southeast Louisiana sticks out, southern Florida sticks out, and we stick out. So we get hit quite a bit by these systems. That's why you're seeing us get recurvatures. Also, I think this is cool, major hurricanes. How often do we see major hurricanes, category 3 or higher? Southeast Florida is number one at once every 14 years, but you see up here every 16 years in the Outer Banks, but southern Florida seems to be a little bit more frequently hit by significant hurricanes. So just a little climatology there to show you what's going on. So let's go back to the current satellite image. Big explosion of storms near the center. There it is. It's battling wind shear and dry air. We will keep an eye on this system, but right now the forecast does take it up here into the Carolinas sometime late Monday into early Tuesday. So you've got 3 whole days pretty much to get ready for this. And if I lived on any of the Outer Banks or any barrier islands, I would suspect if you're a tourist, you're not going to be allowed out there Monday or Tuesday. And I would get ready for a minimal hurricane starting Monday night into early Tuesday. That's my word of advice for now.